Remember the end of 1999? The media was in a frenzy. People stockpiled canned goods, and a massive industry popped up to sell survival gear for the impending apocalypse. The fear economy got ridiculous very fast. Marketers started slapping Y2K compliance stickers on devices that didn't even have internal calendars. You could buy Y2K-ready analog clocks and hairdryers. Then midnight struck. The lights stayed on. The planes didn't fall. For the general public, the takeaway was obvious. The whole thing had been a massive scam to sell magazines and generators. That collective memory of a fake panic is universally accepted today, but it completely masks the reality of what was actually happening behind closed doors. This chart shows the financial scale. At the bottom, the $8.5 billion the US government spent. Towering above it is the global cost, between $300 and $600 billion. Almost half of that staggering total was spent in the US to protect critical infrastructure. The idea that nothing happened is demonstrably false. A military ground station in Fort Belvoir crashed at midnight, losing contact with 5 spy satellites. Over in Egypt, life-saving dialysis machines failed. In Japan, alarm systems at the Onagawa nuclear power plant went offline. If Y2K was a gimmick, why did the global economy spend hundreds of billions of dollars? Exactly what disaster were they actually fighting? To understand the real threat, we have to look back to the origins of computer programming in the early 1960s. The Y2K bug was a deliberate engineering decision. Back then, computer memory was extraordinarily expensive. A single kilobyte could cost up to $100. Every byte saved mattered. Dropping the 19 in a given year, storing 1985 as just 85, saved 2 crucial bytes of memory per individual record. Across massive insurance ledgers and payroll systems, those 2 bytes equated to millions of dollars saved. It was a perfectly reasonable assumption at the time. Programmers figured the 19th century prefix was obvious, and they assumed these systems would be retired and replaced long before the year 2000. Because this code was built so reliably, it outlived its intended lifespan. The elegant, cost-saving solution eventually became a structural liability as the century boundary approached. The math broke down at the century boundary. If a system calculated a 30-year mortgage taken out in 1985, it subtracted 85 from 15, resulting in an impossible -70. The computer couldn't distinguish 1900 from 2000. During a 1999 test at the Peach Bottom Nuclear Generating Station in Pennsylvania, a technician accidentally changed the clock on a single unfixed computer. It immediately crashed all the systems at the station. In another prefix test, an erroneous upgrade sent the small village of Oswego, Illinois, a monthly electric bill for $7 million. These tests provided concrete proof. The threat was real and unaddressed. It would trigger cascading failures in major banking systems, regional power grids, and air traffic control. To actually fix the problem, every single organization had to physically inventory tens of thousands of embedded chips and databases. For large banks, this meant auditing thousands of individual programs one by one. This triggered a massive staffing crisis. Because so much of the vulnerable infrastructure was written in a decades-old language called COBOL, companies had to pull programmers in their 60s and 70s out of retirement, paying them premium rates to audit the legacy code. The manual work was absolutely grueling. Programmers audited decades-old systems, line by line, expanding 2-digit date fields into 4 and exhaustively running simulated rollovers to verify system stability. Hundreds of thousands of programmers worked for years to rewrite this code. They met a non-negotiable deadline, modernizing the backbone of the global economy in the process. When midnight arrived on January 1st, 2000, the public celebrated. But behind the scenes, thousands of engineers sat at watch posts in quiet anxiety. Catastrophic collapse was averted, but the night wasn't perfectly silent. The Chicago Federal Reserve failed to transfer $700,000 in tax revenue, and tens of thousands of cash registers failed in Greece. The fact that society didn't crumble led the public to dismiss the entire effort. Academics call this the prevention paradox. This diagram shows the logic of the paradox. When prevention works perfectly, the averted disaster is totally invisible. To an outside observer, the cost of an averted disaster looks exactly identical to the cost of fighting a fake threat. This creates a perverse incentive. The more thoroughly and successfully the engineers fix a problem before it strikes, the more they look like fools who wasted money on a non-existent threat. The Y2K effort functioned as a massive forced modernization. It updated decades of aging digital infrastructure that would have eventually failed regardless of the date, and we are already facing the exact same type of problem. On January 19, 2038, aging 32-bit Unix time systems will hit their maximum value, overflow, and fail in the exact same manner. Earnestly, the silent transition into the year 2000 was not proof that the threat was fake. It was the absolute proof that the preparation worked. And that is a lesson we literally cannot afford to forget for 2038. I linked 3 books below. One explains the invisible systems the engineers were racing to protect. One puts you inside the room where the deadline is impossible. And one was written before Y2K hit by the people who saw it coming. The silent transition into the year 2000 was not proof that the threat was fake. It was the absolute proof that the preparation worked. January 19th, 2038. Write it down. The engineers already have. Subscribe and watch the next video on our channel.